We are here at SlatorCon Silicon Valley 2025, and I'm very happy to be joined by Sabri Hammad, who is a Senior Solutions Architect at Google Cloud Consulting. And we just saw a very interesting panel, and we just wanted to dig into a couple more of the interesting details about how Google Cloud supports language AI. So, Sabri, let's talk a little bit about the big picture. How do you actually help enterprises to scale language AI products?
So one of the things that we do is help customers identify first of all, they have a language problem. A lot of our customers, they come to us for AI solutions. They've been given charters for their CEOs, by their executives. I want to use AI. And one of the things that we offer to them is obviously the full suite of Google infrastructure, scalability, things like that. But we say, have you thought about language at all? And then I think that's when they start thinking about where can we actually leverage language services, language models in our enterprise. And one of the things that we try to position to them is we have a lot of pre-built language models, Gemini, Gemma, things like that. But we also have a whole partner ecosystem that we can bring in to support them to kind of bridge that gap for services that they don't have. More than just document translation and, call centers and things like that. Actual language services that can be embedded into their entire product set from an enterprise perspective.
And when we talk about language AI, and we're not just talking about text or translation, we're very much in the multimodal world of text to speech, text to speech, speech to text, content generation, and so on. But multimodal brings its own complexities. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of challenges that there are in multimodal deployments?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we run into a lot with multimodal is everyone has a whole database of documents. That's pretty easy to have. They have patient data, records, things like that. What they don't understand is that's one, I think about a 3 or 4D model. That's just one dimension of it. What they don't have is data for the other portions of it. So what we try to help them with is, how are you going to capture the data that we can use for that model? What does multimodal mean for you as a company? A lot of times they don't even know they can use that data for these kinds of services. So our biggest thing is really unlocking potential, saying, look, you can use your training videos, your calls that you do, your all hands calls, any kind of customer calls, customer interactions, and do all of that to say, look, these are all input points that we can use to actually enhance your language models that are going to be specific for your industry.
And when we talk about customers, what are the main kind of enterprise types or verticals and industries that are coming to you, wanting to build language AI?
Yeah, we have. Everyone is dealing with language in a different way. Some are at a smaller scale. We do a lot of healthcare services where it's like a hospital in a metropolitan area that has 7 or 8 or 10 or 20 languages, and that's a pretty tight use case. Then we have customers that are more at the enterprise level, and they say, we are building multi-million-dollar, data centers, multi-million-dollar manufacturing facilities all over the world. And we have to train the population there. We have to get all of our stuff. We want to go to market. So it's really depending on the customer, we can approach language from a different perspective, which is, do you go at it from the enterprise level and as a readiness, or do you just put it into capability inside of the stuff that they already have, the stuff they're already producing? So what we want to do for them is say, is it worthwhile re-platforming everything that you have, or can we use an AI here to, for example, generate onboarding documentation for your new, manufacturing facility in Vietnam, right? Or is it worth, for example, at the localization level, at the local level, building, platforms in such a way that the patient experience is consistent across the patient's primary language? This really just depends on what the use case is. But our platform plus our partner network really does enable us to kind of really target whether it's a small individual person to person, or if it's literally like a company going overseas and saying which model is best in this country if I want to deploy it, which localization can I use there?
Mm-hmm. And thinking about kind of early stage startups for the moment in the language industry, we've seen a huge influx of new entrants building on speech to text, text to speech, and content generation. What would be, I guess, a tip that you might give to a founder of a startup at this point?
Yeah, one is, don't start from the bottom. Don't start from scratch, right? We have some at Google, Amazon, OpenAI, Microsoft. Everybody has some. I think we'll start there. Decide on what language model fits your business need best for your startup, and then start scaffolding in differentiated services along the way, right? I recommend you go vertical. So you find a vertical niche and you kind of go in that niche. So I want to do, for example, healthcare exclusively, and I want to build a model on top of somebody's model that, you know, can really go after that niche. And from there, you bring in specialists that can do things like fine tuning and prompting and, you know, customizing your RAG, you know, your RAG model, creating all the kind of data that you need that's really going to be subject matter specific. I recommend you go there first. And then secondly, you start looking at, all right, now that I'm a startup, I've identified what my vertical is, what are the incentives that are out there for me? Because it's more than just learning a programming language. It's also how are they going to help me enable this in their ecosystem from an infrastructure cloud perspective, but also in their marketplace, right? So we have a marketplace, we have a partner channel network, everybody does. And it's a matter of like, we go, and none of us are primary consulting companies. We are all cloud companies, hyperscalers, and we rely on our partners to bring that industry specialization to kind of, you know, bookend the infrastructure that we provide for our customers. So that, make a recommendation there that definitely, like, you know, pick a model that works, pick a vertical that works, and then pick a way to go to market with it. With the other thing I'll say, it's kind of against the Google methodology, but actually very pro Google, is be transportable, be multi-cloud as much as you can. You know, don't lock yourself into one particular vendor, right? See where it makes sense for you to fly around in the ecosystem.
Oh, get some great tips and insights there for founders. And just a fun question to finish. Yeah. I had to ask you, you're also a beekeeper, and you have 3 generations of beekeeping in your family. So are there any parallels between?
You know, it's funny, you know, I used to go up to the bees with my AirPods in and just listen to something. And I talked to my grandfather, God rest his soul, who was the first one. And I told him, I was like, my bees are acting erratic. What's going on? He's like, how do they sound? I was like, I don't know. I'm listening to something else. He was like, no, you got to hear them first before you go up there. And his recommendation is you go and it's like bees have a language. And it's not an individual B2B language. It's more like the entire colony has a frequency that you can actually, I'm not there yet, I'm not, but my grandfather and my father are, where they're telling me, like, the bees have a frequency you have to listen for. If they're in a panic state, if they're hungry, if they're defensive, if they are, if they have a new queen, for example. And there really is a lot of parallels there. And what actually I'm working with a few people just to figure out, like, is there a way that we can, like, document what it looks like, right? What's the frequencies that are indicative of a colony in distress or a colony in, for example, honey gathering mode or something like that. And it's been really interesting for me, for sure. But I wish the technology was there yet, but we don't quite have interspecies translation services yet. But it's coming.
I'm sure it's around the corner.
Absolutely, it's coming. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you so much.